Hey everybody, welcome to my first video on basically a VR headset ever. I decided to make this video because I did a lot of research. I've recently had to upgrade from an HP Reverb G2 to the Vive Focus Vision because Microsoft, in their ultimate stupidity, and I think there's some selfishness in here, and I wouldn't be surprised if they get into some legal trouble because of it. Decided to just remove the support for their VR software that was built into Windows. So in Windows 11 24H2, the software has been completely removed, and any VR headsets that require it are basically bricked. You can't do anything with them unless you revert back to 23H2 or you go to Windows 10. So I was kind of forced to buy this Vive Focus Vision, even though my HP Reverb G2 was about 2 years old. And I feel bad for some people because they bought theirs about a year ago because they were still being sold about a year ago, and they basically have a brick. So I would not be surprised again if there was some legal action against Microsoft as a class action lawsuit. But that's not what this video is about. This video is about this new headset that I decided to go with, and I did some research. And one of the reasons why I went with the Vive Focus Vision after looking at the Quest 3, because the Quest 3 was really a very close competitor. One is I wanted a headset that didn't require tracking stations. Both don't do that. There's another company I know that supposedly makes really good resolutions on there that also had just a recent headset that didn't use tracking stations. I honestly did not look at them very deeply. Basically, there was a lot of stuff that I kept seeing in the Vive Focus Vision that really stuck out to me that I liked. Mainly because it seemed to be this hybrid of the Quest 3, so that I can literally go anywhere in the house and use it. And it had its own built-in games, so I could just use the Wi-Fi. So if I decided to go on a vacation, take it with me, whatever games that I have from Vive themselves directly, I can play as long as I had an internet connection. And then if I was within the house and had my PC, I could then use the Wi-Fi to play my SteamVR games through Wi-Fi again anywhere in the house, which was intriguing to me. And not only that, but then it also had the ability to connect the headset directly to my computer, and the cable that they provided actually draws the power into the headset, which was a big bonus for me. So they don't have this, oh, 2 hours are up, let me pause, I'll be right back, everybody, or whatever I was playing, pause the game, pull out the battery, put the new one in, and then put it back on my head. That's not an issue because it draws the power from that cord. So it seemed to be this I think a very well thought out plan all the way around. And it sort of takes, I think, some of the strongest things that HP Reverb G2 had and then improves it to this. Because I really like the HP Reverb G2. The only thing that I did not like was the tracking. It would get lost when you went too far back with your hands. And there was a guessing game in their software. And if it guessed wrong, you'd see your hand kind of go here and then go whoop, wherever it really was later. The tracking on this thing is really well. So when I did all that analysis and figured it out, and that's when I tracked it down to just, okay, let me get into the Vision. I saw the Focus 3, and honestly, there were some people on eBay that were just on fire sales on the Focus 3. The reason why I didn't go to the Focus 3 was I don't believe it supports a display port, and it also didn't have color pass-through. So like you basically on your controller, you hit the right button twice on the Vision Focus, and you can kind of go see, and then you can see around what's going on around you. So makes it quite easy. One of the things that it's not covered in any of my sections that I just couldn't figure out where to put it, the boundaries on the Vive Focus Vision. So in the HP Reverb G2, you created your boundary. Everybody's familiar with boundaries. But one of the cool things is what if you're playing a game or watching a movie and it doesn't require a boundary. Well, the HP Reverb, turn off boundaries, and then you just basically, you can do whatever you're going to do. Vive, please, if you love your customers, create a functionality to turn off the boundary easily. Make it like maybe it's a click or something. Put it on the main menu. So when I double click and it gives me that pop up, give me an option there. Turn off boundary, whatever. It's driving me crazy that I have to make a boundary about 2 feet wider than my area, and it's literally going into walls, so that I don't have the boundary in my face when I'm just literally sitting at my desk trying to just watch a cinema movie or 3D movie or something. Or playing, there's a game that I have that you play drums, and I'm just sitting in my chair, and I have this blue square boundary right in my face. But anyways, this is the introduction, not anything else. I just forgot to mention that anywhere else in the videos, and I just wanted to put that in there. So when I did all this analysis of Quest 3 in the Vision, I finally ended up saying, okay, the Quest 3 had no way of powering it on, and I had to constantly swap the batteries. The cable that connects into the PC does do compressed data, whereas in the Vive does not. It's straight raw data coming right in. And then the tracking stuff, the Quest 3 is at I got the impression it's at its limits. It's basically, they're doing some tracking, I guess, stuff, but they're really not opening the door for future massive upgrades without giving you a whole new headset. Whereas in the Vive Vision, what I saw when reading and looking at his stuff is there was this is a word you rarely get to use, a plethora of options. So it was kind of pretty much a done deal for me at that point. I just said, okay, let's give it a try. And I think they give you a 14-day trial period to see what you like. So I was like, okay, let me give that a try. And honestly, as I'm making this video, I'm still within the 14-day trial period. I've used it extensively over the last few days. I'm definitely keeping it. I like it. I'm not sending it back. And I am pretty sure it's going to get firmware upgrades to get it on par eventually at some point. So anyways, I just wanted to cover that. And, I hope you enjoy the video, and I hope you learn a lot from it, because my whole entire goal is to not have you go through the same amount of research and stress that I had to go through to get this thing running smoothly, and with the ins and outs, and then the hardware wise. Okay, so enjoy the video. Leave your feedback down below. I would love to hear what your opinions are, and if you've got something that it's a better way of doing it than I did it, please share down below. Everybody who watches this video is definitely going to be interested. Thank you. Okay, so in this section of the video, we're going to be covering some of the hardware and some things that I noticed that stick out to me, either and explain what they work, how to use them, and what they do or what they don't do, and kind of go over there. As per usual, I have my top right, I have my notes that I'm going to be covering through this, and I prepared some links that I have in the browser and a few other things that I'm going to show you. So first, I want to go over the display adapter, the DisplayPort mode compatibility. First, I want to say to Vive, this should just come with the headset. Your main sales pitch for this headset is that not only can it do the Quest 3, but it can also be a standalone, or not a standalone, a direct connection to the PC without having to change the battery. That is big. That is very big for PC users. Put this in there. Nobody is going to buy this headset for just the standalone features. Nobody. If they're going to do that, they're going to buy the Quest 3. This gives you both worlds. I can take this headset, and if I have family and friends over, rather than having to sit in front of my PC, I can go to the living room and have my entire family use this headset. And take turns playing. And there's more room in the living room than right by my PC. So my recommendation is add this into the base and advertise it heavily. Just that this does the best of both, and it gives you everything, especially with the motion trackers and all this other stuff. I've seen a lot of reviews, people saying that the motion tracking is off and stuff like that. I'll go over my opinions on that a little later on the conclusion section. But we'll follow up that later. So let's focus on this display port here. So I want to go over what Valve is giving you here. Or Vive, sorry, what Vive is giving you here. So first, this cable here is just a standard cable, plugs into the headset, and then it's going to plug into this device right here that I'm pointing with the mouse, right? And it plugs it on this side. So what I did is like this uses the same exact concept that the HP Reverb G2 has. It had literally the same kind of setup where it had a cable plugging into the headset and then this box. So what I did is, since I have my PC on the bottom of my desk towards the left and I have a standing desk, I basically used Velcro, a Velcro type of sticky thing, and then I Velcroed this box to the desk. These two connectors go into the back of the PC, and then I have my headset plug into there. Now, this guy has two connectors in on this side. One is a USB-C, which is for this cable up here on the top. Okay, this cable is designed to plug into this device here and plugs into your power strip or your wall outlet, wherever you want to. I recommend using a power strip in case you get a surge, but to each their own. They also have the plug-in for the AC adapter, which I find odd because I tested it and it does nothing. So when I use the proper setup as per their instructions and use the USB-C port with this guy, when I put the Valve Vision on, it does say that it's drawing power from the DisplayPort cable. So when I use the AC adapter, it doesn't do anything. It just it says it's working on DisplayPort, but it's not drawing power from it. So I'm not sure what Vive was thinking when they put that that connector on there. So I honestly don't know. I mean, maybe they thought that would work, or maybe my device is just not working properly and it's supposed to work, either interchangeable. Okay, so but just keep that in mind. It's really for this USB thing. They also, in the box, it's just not on this screenshot, they give you a USB-C that's a splitter. It's one on one side and it splits into two. And then that is designed to plug into your controllers to charge them. And they say to plug them into the headset. Now, to plug it into the headset, you have to disconnect this guy to plug them in to charge your controllers. Anybody who's been around for a very long time, like if you've had a cell phone, the same cell phone for 3-4 years, that connector starts to get loose and breaking down after a while. You're constantly switching this cable all of the time with your headset, you're gonna break your headset. So once you hook this cable up, you really don't want to unplug it. You don't want to mess with it. You don't want to dangle with it to plug in a different. So what I discovered is a couple things. One is if you take it, the USB-C connector, on my particular PC, not all PCs, most don't have this, but on mine I do, I have a USB-C port in the front. Plug it in there, plug it into two controllers, works just fine, starts charging them. You can also take this adapter and take it out from being connecting to powering him just to charge your headset. So you take it out now to charge your controllers. That kind of defeats the purposes if you're doing all of this wiring and now you got to unhook just this guy to do it. It's kind of a pain. I personally have all my cables managed in the back, strip ties and all that other stuff, so it's really nice and tight. They're not dangling everywhere. And this is not an option for me. So what I recommend for people, it is a 30 watt, as they state somewhere around here. Here we go. It's a 30 watt power, USB power. Just go to Amazon and buy one of the ones here for like 10 bucks. Does 30 watts. There's plenty of them that you see. Here's one for 30 watts. I think they have an Amazon Basics one for 30 watts. So just pick up one of those to use the USB-C, and that should, then you can use that to plug into the wall outlet, plug in that cable, then to your controllers. This way you're not constantly unplugging and plugging stuff in. Because you don't want your thing to break down over time. So One thing that does stick out to me, which is odd. So the AC adapter, the one that's basically, when I say AC adapter, there is a power, they give you two power adapters. They give you this setup here, and then they have a separate setup, which is a big box, or not a box, but it's basically a plug with a cable built into it, which has got the normal round adapter that we've seen, God, for what, 40 years now? 30, 40 years? And it has a spot to plug into here, like I said earlier, but it doesn't do anything. There's also a spot actually on the battery, which most people get confused when you have the battery in your headset and you're looking at it from the back. There's a hole on top and you plug it into there. It makes you think that that is built into the headset. It is not. It's built into the battery, which is kind of smart. If I had to guess, one of Vive's thoughts behind this with the battery was is they had, you know, it's a fail-safe point. It's a point where normal breakage happens. So people are unplugging and plugging the power thing constantly into your headset. Eventually it's going to break. The headset itself is perfectly fine and works. So they end up getting basically a return, or that the person who owns it has to throw it away or pay somebody to solder this thing back on or solder a new one on. So Vive was, I think, is a stroke of brilliance. They put it on the battery. So obviously when the battery dies, you toss it out, get a new one, and you just got a new plug-in for the adapter. Woohoo, you know, and you avoid this whole thing. And if you ever break it, okay, so you replace the battery, but you still got the headset. They also did the same fail-safe thing with the power button, which I thought was brilliant, because it's, again, buttons are notorious for fail-safe or areas where it's a point of failure where the rest of the device works, but the button's broken. So they allocated the power button onto the battery. So when you finally wear down that power button with your finger, but the battery is okay, unfortunately, you just toss out the battery and buy a new one, and you're fine. The headset continues working. So hats off to Vive on that one. Totally appreciate them thinking about keeping things working and all the way around. So going back to the power adapters, that AC adapter, this is where I'm not really happy about. So yes, they used an AC adapter on the battery. Now, I want to point out something here. They give you backups for the battery, so you can buy another one if it fails. This is from their website directly, right? So you can buy another battery here individually, and it fails. But here, the one part that is missing is the AC adapter that plugs directly into the headset or plugs into this guy here, which doesn't do anything. So I don't even know why they added the plug here to charge the batteries themselves, or, you know, the battery in the headset, which technically I'm assuming you don't even need the battery in the headset. You can plug it directly into the battery and just have it charged out. I haven't tried that, but I'm assuming it's going to work. So if everything else is USB-C, why did they make that an AC adapter? That doesn't make any sense to me, where now you have a USB-C is standard across the whole industry. It's been standardized, and in Europe, the European Union made it standard so that you don't have multiple cables being distinguished. So why create this power adapter for this one single instance, not using USB-C, but it also uses the same wattage of 30 watts, which again boggles my mind. Vive, I recommend on a future, if you want to call it the Vive Focus Vision B or whatever, and just change this, get rid of that round circle, change it to USB-C. And for everybody who's got the older version, give them a converter, a small adapter device that's about the size of this guy here in your kit, that converts the AC adapter into the USB port. And we can plug it in. Because obviously, or it goes from USB-C to the AC adapters, and then you just sell that as a replacement on a fail-safe point. And then for all future versions, they basically have the USB-C, because what am I supposed to do? And it's very difficult if Vive themselves are not providing that AC adapter, and you have to go on Amazon, you're playing kind of Russian roulette. I've had some bad experiences with other devices where I was trying to find a replacement for the power adapter, and then I ended up buying one that I thought was the correct one, and I fried the device that I connected it to. So you're kind of playing Russian roulette. So overall, I would say A minus, B plus for Vive on forward thinking with this battery design, so that it takes away the points of failures to give the device longer life and less returns for broken things over time. But that particular one, obviously, the two departments that designed it, each individual section, were not communicating. So fix that. So I want to go over now some videos that I had. So the cable management, if you see here, this is a photo of my actual Vision. I took a picture of it to show everybody here. The cable manager. So they give you two zip ties. And there's basically, it depends on which side your PC is on. So you see where I am at. My PC is on this side, which you're looking on the video. It looks like it's the right, but it's actually my left. It's on my left side. So my headset cable, the way you're seeing this structure right now, is for the cable to lean off my left. If I don't have the strap here and I just basically put two straps here, the cable just comes down and it dangles behind my back, and I'm constantly tripping over it when I'm playing like Beat Saber or some other games. Even though the cable's pretty lengthy, it's good size length, I'm still having issues with it, tripping it. By doing this little loop here, it causes the cable actually come over my shoulder, and it comes straight down and then goes straight to the PC. And I'm not actually, it's not in my way. My arms are not getting dangled there because it goes straight down, and I've got plenty of room to do what I'm doing, and nothing's hitting the cable. For people who don't know how to use this strap, if most people know what a Velcro strap is, but these Velcros have a different design. If you're not careful and you're not paying attention to it, you'll miss it. It's actually two straps in one. The smaller strap, which you see here that I'm pointing to here, is designed to wrap itself around the cable. So it's giving you a point that's getting locked down around that cable. The big strap goes around the band to lock it into place. So basically, as you can see, so the cable's not really dangling around. The strap moves around, but the cable doesn't dangling around. And so if you are left, if your PC's on your left, you want to do a design like this to keep the cable out of you. If your PC's on the right, just take this strap, move it to the right side here, and then just let the cable go down to your right side. For Valve, I'm not sure what you can do here. One of the ideas that I can come up with is you have this area right here coming across. You could put in a guide to create it so that I can do a proper cable management for a left-leaning PC compared to a right one. A simple guide with like a clip-on, because you already know the size of the cable. The only thing is, and again, I do appreciate that they used standard USB connectors for this cable, which means you don't have to use their cable. So if they ever stop making the cable, if some people remember the earliest versions of the Oculus and stuff, where the cable was worth more than the headset themselves at one point on eBay, you can actually get a generic brand of the cable, and it should do the same, work the same as theirs. But from Vive's perspective, you should always assume they're using your cable, and I would just say put some sort of a guide here to make this cable so that they can come around, lock it down, like some sort of clips to lock it down as a cable manager. And then this way, this strap, as you can see, the strap will then grab onto it and hold onto it better. So you can see right now, my cable for a left-leaning PC, because there's no guide, it's kind of dangling a little bit down there. It doesn't bother me, honestly, but I can see kind of for some people getting a little bit annoying. The only downside is if you have the cable up here, it does partially block the button on this area. So you may want to make it a little bit further out. But I'll let your technicians decide. Hopefully you'll take my feedback as something to heavily consider. I did take some additional photos, again, of this cable and how it's being managed and brought across for a left-leaning PC. And I also wanted to point out, I took a picture of the battery so that people can see the buttons actually on the battery, which, again, good thinking, Vive. I really thought that was awesome. Again, removing a point of failure that is easily replaceable without ever needing a technician. And the battery, you can actually see here on this picture from their site, it's got the plug up here, that the AC adapter. This is what I suggest to Vive, to changing it to USB-C. And one of the things you can do is, if you want to keep the same design so that the battery will work in both headsets, if you create like a Vive Vision B and you change this to a USB-C, I don't need 4 lights. In fact, I don't even know what the hell these lights do. I know your website said something about them, but I've had it where it said all 4 lights were on, but the battery was dead. And that was this morning. This is how I found out about the whole thing about it not, it goes into hibernate mode and doesn't actually ever power itself off, which I do recommend you update your firmware, that if it goes into a hibernate mode for like 30 minutes, shut off. Because mine was in that hibernate mode all night long until it finally drained the battery, and this morning it was completely dead because I didn't know that you had to hold the power button 10 seconds. But anyways, to make it compatible, get rid of the lights, change it to one single light with different colors, and you can put the USB-C connector right here for the batteries, for the future batteries. And then what you basically do then is you actually convert the Vive, the older versions, the Vive Vision version, older versions, to use the USB-C adapter, because you already have the hole. The hole's big enough. You're just redesigning the battery, and the whole thing is going to work beautifully. On the top, you just basically cover this up, seal that up, and then just redesign it so that now you're creating a completely universal, and we don't need this AC adapter anymore, and everything goes bye-bye. And then you've accomplished what you were, I think, was your thought, which is to make it almost completely failure point proof removed. So anyways, I wanted to cover that. I think that's it for my notes, as you can see on my top left. And that's it. I'll save the rest for my other sections of this same video, including my conclusion. So in this section, I'm going to be covering the settings for both the Vive Hub and SteamVR. And we're going to go over things that I've discovered when I was setting up my Vive Focus Vision. So as you can see here, I'm using a DisplayPort as my connection type, and the perks, it's one of the main reasons why I picked this VR headset, because I came from an HP Reverb G2 version 2, and I kind of, that was like one of those headsets that just, it wasn't the greatest at everything or anything specific, but it was good at everything. The only thing that I would caveat would be the tracking was just slightly not great, but it was good enough. So I'm comparing a lot of my experiences with this Focus Vision to that specific device. Now, with the DisplayPort, one of my goals was I was looking for a new headset that could give me a lot of the same functionality and basically feed off the computer. I didn't want base stations. I didn't want to hang base stations in my basement. I didn't want to put holes in the wall. And I also didn't want to also live off of battery powered. So, that automatically then removes the Quest 3, because the Quest 3, even if you connect it to the computer, it still requires the batteries. So then came the Focus Vision with the DisplayPort, which I thought was an awesome design. So what it allows you to do is you connect the cable to the PC, and then you also have to plug it in as well. It's got the same style, think of it that way, same design as the HP Reverb. So when you put it in this mode, you put the headset on, it actually feeds power off of the cable. So it doesn't use your batteries. This way you can play for hours on end and never have to worry about it stopping. Now you can still play on your PC using Wi-Fi mode, and that'll actually let you play in anywhere in your house. You don't have to be anywhere near your computer if you decide to play in that mode. But again, then you're on battery powered, and you got to replace the batteries each time you do this. So that was the main reason why I did it. Now, some caveats that I will say is with the DisplayPort, even though you're using the cable and the power's coming through it, you got to remember to hold the button down for 10 seconds to turn off the headset. Just because it goes into this hibernate mode or you turn off your PC, the headset is not fully off. And what'll happen is it'll keep draining the battery, and by the time you come in the next morning, it's turned off. Now, the documentation says you got to hold the button down for 10 seconds. You do have to hold the button down for 10 seconds. And all it does is it does a beep. You basically doesn't tell you it's turning off. It just says beep. My recommendation to Vive through a firmware update, because I'm pretty sure you can do it, change that beep to say something. Same off, so that the user knows and is hearing it's turning off. Because other than that, I don't know what it's doing, and I didn't even realize I had to hold it for 10 seconds. But anyways, I'll regress that. That's what you got to do to turn this thing off. So we covered that. Some caveats, as you can see, I have a bulleted item on the top right on the screen. You can see so some caveats. The bit rate at 200 megabits per second. That's really low. I don't know why they limited to such a low number. I've seen people come up with workarounds for the Quest 3 to get it up to like 800 megabits. Vive, please change this. I mean, people are if they're spending $1,000 for this Focus Vision headset, they're going to spend money most likely on a good router. And I can't stress this enough, people, is that your Wi-Fi router does make a difference in your home. I know too many people who will spend $80, $90, $100 a month on a 1 gigabit internet connection, but their router and their Wi-Fi stinks and they're not even using it. They're not using. They think that they need the internet connection. I have a 300 megabits download, 300 megabits upload. I'm using Verizon Fios. Got the minimum package. I have over 70 devices connected to this thing using a high-end Asus router, and I'm paying less than half the price of what you pay for the gigabit connection, and everything runs just fine. So Vive, please increase the amount, and everybody else, if you're buying this, spending this kind of money on this kind of a device, think about getting a good router. Okay, so pushing that aside, my main focus is all this is how to get this Vive Focus set up and get around all the issues that I had. So the bit rate, this only comes in if you're using the Wi-Fi to connect. So you see in the screenshot, everything is disabled. And that's because I'm using the display port. So let's go to the next one. Screen 2. So that would be here on my notes. So on screen 2, I got the streaming graphic preferences set to ultra. I just set it to that. I didn't actually dig into seeing what the differences are. I'm assuming everybody will try to play in ultra mode unless you have a low-end video card. I do want to point out some things with the sharpening. So sharpening, I found very little on it. They don't really talk much, but you got to think of the sharpening as in your monitor. If you turn the sharpening on your monitor all the way up, the screen starts to look a little strange. I saw somebody on Reddit saying, I just put it all the way up and just left it there. You got to play around with it to see what it's like. One of the things that I notice is when you put it all the way up, menus get a little distorted. They look a little strange. But in cinema mode, like if you're watching a movie or something like that, the sharpening all the way up actually looks pretty good. Just keep in mind that your menus look strange. In games, I don't see really much of a difference. I would suggest you keep it in the half mark or low or below, simply because it distorts some menus and some text. So you're better off just leaving it in the middle. But find your sweet spot. That's about all I can say. It doesn't really have much of an effect other than that visual thing. So anyways, that's it for this one. Let's go to the next one. So this is pictures 3 and 4. So we're on 3 right now. So these are the settings that Hub comes once you install it. These are the default settings. There's only one setting that I changed, and I highly recommend everybody changes it. It's the compatibility mode for your controllers, which is this part right here. And the reason for that, if you're using SteamVR, when I was having weird problems with my controllers when I first went in and left everything on default, I could not, I wasn't getting the beam so I could point to things, and the controllers weren't working perfectly right. So I just came here and turned compatibility mode off, and then everything started working really great. And all my problems went away. So go ahead with that. So some of the default settings did strike me as odd, like hand tracking. Well, actually, hand tracking, it does do it. That's another cool thing about this headset is it does track your hands, and I've noticed it even in SteamVR. Like I'll put the joysticks down, and then I got my hands moving around, and it'll actually pick up my hands. So it's pretty neat. I am surprised that some of the defaults here is the Vive wrist tracker for hand tracking. I assume that's a separate device. I don't have it. Maybe it's built into the Vision Focus. I'm not sure. Anyways, I left it there. Didn't hurt anything, so I just left it. So, but just keep in mind the main one is the compatibility mode. Get that set. Now, before we go to start looking on Steams, I want to point you out this 3072 by 3072 resolution per eye, which is higher than what the headset's official eye per height by width per eye is. I think it's like 2440 or something to that effect for the official numbers. So we're going to cover that in just a second. So next, in the SteamVR, the play area, which is picture 5. And here, the play area does nothing. Ignore it. It don't matter what you change in here in SteamVR. It will not do anything. Now, for those of you who don't know what this is and not how to get to it, just go to Copilot and just type in how to get to SteamVR settings, and she'll tell you it's very easy. You'll have to start the headset up, and then there's some dots, and you just click on it and select settings, and then you'll see this whole left menu here. So when you get in there, play area, ignore it. It won't do anything. It's completely ignored. So let's go on to the next one. Screen number 6. So this one is this section here that I'm highlighting now. So let's go over motion smoothing. I actually did see a difference on this. So if you turn it off, you will, and depending on how many frames per second, if it's a video, like a movie you're watching or something like that, you will see a difference. So I turned this on and it looks a lot smoother. So I do recommend people turning it on. Some people say off, some people say on. I see a difference. My personal preference is on. The render resolution. So if this is the reason why I said pay attention to what I said earlier, the 3072 by 3072 as the default. See where this dash right here is? Steam thinks that your headset can support 3072 by 3072. So if you if you leave this in auto, it's going to go straight to that section, right? And if you put it to custom, it's always going to default to there before you change it. So leaving this on auto leaves it at that. So what's going to happen is you'll go into the VR headset, it'll look like it's working, but then when you start going into games, they're not working right. They're stuttering, they're having a hard time loading. I noticed this heavily in Beat Saber. When I was trying to get into Beat Saber, the whole thing kept saying waiting for loading, but I can see the menu in the background, and the joystick was not, it was barely moving and all that stuff, and I couldn't point to anything. I thought it was maybe something wrong with the video card or anything like that, and I finally tracked the problem down to that setting there. So I'm not sure what's causing it, but if you have the setting at 3072 by 3072 and you have this set to auto, so if you, either way, it's causing something. Maybe the resolution is just too high and it causes it to stutter. It could be a video card problem. Maybe I need an RTX 4080 or 4090, whatever. But I suspect it's not really. I suspect there's something where the headset is not designed for that kind of high resolution, and it's just kind of in this overload situation. So I played around with it, going back in and out of Beat Saber over and over again until I finally found the setting where everything was smooth, which was 2568 by 2568. So what I recommend is if you want to play around with this and you want to see if you can push the bar, start at 2568, make sure everything is working for you, and then push it up to like 2700. See what happens. For me, once I got into the 2600s, in Beat Saber, I got the stuttering. I couldn't, it was unplayable. So give that a shot. As for the rest of the settings, the advanced super sampling filter, I turned it off. Most people say they play with it off. I couldn't tell the difference between on or off, so it made no difference. So I just removed it. Figured the less things you have being processed, the less overhead you have, and the more frames per second you can get. All right, so let's move on to the last screen here, which is the audio section. So yes, you'll see by my screenshot, I manually set the audio devices for both the audio in the ears and the microphone. And I did this mainly because I was having audio problems. And when I Googled it, the HTV or Vive's support itself told you to do this if you're having issues with Steam. What I discovered is that the settings here do absolutely nothing. I can set this to any device you want, and it's like I think it's just ignored. It doesn't do anything. So Vive really needs to remove that from their support because it doesn't do anything. Um, in the same video, I'm going to cover how to handle your audio, so you can see how I'm manipulating the audio. But Vive appears to require that the headset be set as the default device and the microphone be set as a default device within Windows itself for the headset to work. I did not know that at first, and I kept thinking, well, my sound doesn't work. What's wrong with my headset? I got picture, but no sound. Why isn't it switching? The HP Reverb G2 switches sound for you automatically. So as soon as I put the headset on, it detects that I have it on, and it would switch the sound for me to the reverb. Valve doesn't do that. So, and apparently they also ignore the Steam settings on what's here, because I've had it set to default to my main speakers, but then I had Steam itself set to the VR audio device. And guess what? It didn't work. So I know that this is being ignored. So that'll be the end of this section, and on to the next one. So in this portion of the video, I'm going to cover how to set up the sound for the Vive, and this, I think this is applicable to any of the Vive sets. From discussions with a few people, this seems to be a common occurrence with the Vive series, where you have to set them as the defaults for sound to work inside the VR headset and inside the games. So what I found is that it was very cumbersome. Every single time I'd have to go to my Windows search, and as you can see here in this section here, I'd have to type in change system sounds, which gives me the option, this program inside of Windows 11, which this actually has been there for many years. I think dates all the way back to like Windows 7, maybe even prior to that. And then you'll get a pop-up like this. This is my pop-up for this machine, and you'll see you should have, if you assume you have speakers, you'll have your main speaker select as your default, and if you have a headset, you'll set that as your communication default, and then you'll see you have Vive Virtual Audio Device here. As you can tell, I renamed it. I went into here, and I recommend you do this because I'm going to show you how to make this automatic for you, and it's required because if the names are identical, you're going to have problems. So you click to rename it, you right-click, click Properties, and you can change the name of the device here. And you change it to whatever you want. Just type in something, whatever makes you comfortable. In my case, I call it just VR Audio. And then you also want to do the same thing in the Recording tab. In the Recording tab, you may have different microphones, like I have my front headset, and then I have a separate microphone, which I use to do the recording of all these videos and stuff. And then I have the VR. This is for the VR headset, and again, I renamed it to the VR microphone, because if you notice, it says Vive Virtual Audio Device, Vive Virtual Audio Device, and the names are identical. And that's going to cause problems later on in this automation process that I'm going to teach you. So you see that I have my Realtek sound card as my default for communications for my head, because I have a headset, and I use that as my default for communications. And then for my default microphone, I have a separate microphone, which is a Q2U. So I'm going to show you what the lower right here is, the actual batch file program, but I'm going to show you what it does first before I actually go into how it works. So you're going to see I'm going to click on VR on, which I created, and it's now changing the audio. And if you look here, it's now removing the audio, and it's going to be changing my Vive to being the default, and then it's going to execute the VHConsole for me, and voila, I have Vive Hub up and running. And now I'm ready to turn on my headset and connect it right on in. And as soon as I click this, watch what's going to happen. I click the X, and I exit, and then you're going to watch, it's going to put everything back the way it was so that I can go play other games or do whatever I'm doing on my desktop. And now back, Everything goes back to the way it was. That's both for playback and recording. Okay, so how did I do that? Well, here's a batch file. I created a batch file, and I'm using this executable called NirCMD. Do a Google search. Actually, I found it through Copilot. You can just go into Copilot and ask for the download link for the NirCMD file. You'll find a website directly from them. Just go down to their, I think it's only in the, you got to scroll to the bottom. So they have like their changelog. Just scroll all the way to the bottom. I think they have the download option. I think everybody's pretty much using Windows 64. So you want to do the 64-bit version of this thing, and you download it. It's going to have a zip file with 3 files in it. All you need is the executable, the exe. And as you can see, I'm moving this because I already prepared this. You'll see I have the exe right here. Ignore this file. This was me playing around. This is the VR on, which is this, which actually does the same job. It does both on and off. This was earlier experimentation that I did. But you just copy the executable and put it in the same folder that you're going to have the batch file in. So the batch file is this here. As you see, I have it in Notepad++, and I will copy and paste this down below in my comments section here on YouTube. And then you just basically, you can just copy it, put it into your own batch file, and follow his instructions. You want to rename this. So what's going on in this batch file? These simple commands. So NirCMD was the only program, because PowerShell didn't even have this ability. NirCMD is the only program that I found that allows me to change for both the default device and the default communication device. So the one here is actually the default device, and the 2 here is the default communication device. Now, NirCMD does encapsulate, so you see we have playback and recording. NirCMD puts them all together. It just throws them into one big list. Think of it that way. Which is why I said the names need to be unique. Because remember, VIVE Virtual Audio Device, VIVE Virtual Audio Device. When you install it, that's the default. So you need to go in there and rename these so that the names are unique. And again, check also your the main devices you want to use. My recommendation is just go in there and rename them all, give them unique names so the ones you're using, and disable the ones you're not. Like you see, I have some disabled and some turned on. So in the batch file, you want to, whatever you named the playback, you set here and here. So this way, what we're telling NirCMD is to set the VR headset for both the default device and default communication device. Make it both the defaults. And then on these 2 commands, which basically, as you can see, they're identical. Because remember, NirCMD puts them into one big list, and making the microphone as the default. So let's run this again. And then you're going to see it shift everything over to default. So now you see VR audio has been defaulted, and now the recordings of everything has been defaulted to VR. And now it's on standby. So what the line of code that we just hit here is this line right here. So what this does now is it started your Vive console, and it's now this wait command is telling the batch file, don't close, don't keep going, stop and wait for me to close this out. Now you can go play your games, go into your VR headset, play. Yes, you will have this window open here. Just leave it. Just leave it. Unless you want to do manually cleaning up yourself, just leave it. And then when you're done, it's going to execute these sets of commands. And what these commands do is it's putting everything back to the way it was. So if you see main speakers here, I'm setting it to the default device. Remember, I said 1 is your default device. Your main speakers, it's right here, the Realtek USB, headphones, there, my Q2 microphone. So now let's do the X and exit, and you'll see it put everything back the way it was. And now VR is no longer the main audio. And it's that simple. You'll see I have some comments here. I will put those same exact comments inside the YouTube text down below for you to copy and paste. And one last thing I forgot to mention, this path here, change it to whatever your path is. If you put it at default, then this should be the exact location where Vive Hub console has been installed. Some people prefer to create their own directory paths and everything. If you just use defaults, you don't have to change anything. Just copy all this and then make sure you rename your audio entries as I showed you earlier. And voila, you now automated all your sound and you don't have to deal with it every single time you want to go into VR and manually set everything. That's it. So now we get to the conclusion part on what I've experienced with the Vive Focus Vision. So first of all, the tracking with the controllers and where their cameras are positioned, it's spot on. I at no point experienced anything where it was jittery, like it lost tracking, so it was guessing where my hands were going. It's been spot on the whole entire time. So I cannot complain about that at all, regards to my hands and stuff. Now, there's been people, I saw some reviews on YouTube. Most reviews or most YouTube videos on the Focus Vision I would designate as useless. They do like open box, or they regurgitate the same stuff that Vive has already said about how to set it up. So clearly this is just people just taking the package thing and not even really giving you their real experience on what they've seen from the headset, and then an actual in-depth view. And I hope that this video of mine provides that. So there was one good video that my daughter linked me to, where a gentleman actually was using his an avatar, and he was showing you facial tracking and how it was slightly off. That he also mentioned he was going to return it because it was so far off, because he had the dongle that goes underneath, and then the eyes face tracking wasn't, the eyes themselves were tracking correctly, but like squinting and stuff was not. I don't use that stuff, so I don't use the facial tracking. However, it doesn't mean I won't in the future. What I will say is given their history of Vive, since they at one point, as that particular viewer pointed out, they had the best tracking headset available. And then I know my daughter really enjoyed previous version. This is my first Vive headset. I've had an Oculus, I've had the HP Reverb G2, and then this is my third headset. My daughter's had earlier versions of Vive as well, and she always said that they were pretty much the king of tracking. So I suspect that they will get the facial tracking all down in just a matter of time, maybe firmware updates. It's what I'm going to guess. I doubt it's a software update. It's probably more of pinpointing the mathematical algorithms. Now, other people mentioned the lenses, that the lens types that they're using is not as good as some of the more current ones. If you wear glasses, especially bifocals, I have bifocals, so my top part is a different prescription than my bottom part. And my glasses, if I try to use my peripheral vision, they're not clear. So like I know I have my fingers up, but they're not completely clear. Now, when I used to have 18/20 vision, because I used to have better than 20/20, I could see pretty clear. But those are rare occasions. That is not your average human being. Your average human being sees clear in front of them, whereas in everything around starts to get hazeled out. Using the Vive Focus and keeping that in mind, that I'm wearing glasses, and I'm telling you, anybody who's wearing especially bifocals, if you're wearing glasses, your glasses already are causing you to see blurry. If you try to move your eyes around in a circle and look around, it's going to be blurry in that direction because the bifocals are focusing on in the middle. That is the area that's going to be always clear. So you're supposed to kind of move your head, not just your eyes. They can do a little bit of playing room, but not to the degree where you're like looking like this and everything is crystal clear off to the left. Bifocals don't do that. So if you're wearing glasses and you're using this headset, you're already accustomed to moving your head and looking mostly straight ahead to getting the clear picture. And it's spot on. They say it does tracking, so whatever spot you're looking at with your eyes, that is the area that it focuses to make it look its best. And I've done some internal testing, and that is true. I verified it. So like wherever I'm looking at it, you can clearly tell that it's focusing in and making that area the best, where everything else is kind of like that distant feature, almost like wearing bifocals. People who don't wear glasses are not going to understand this. They're going to be like, well, I want my complete 180-degree peripheral vision clear. I'm a computer programmer. I like to build computers. I am not an expert on how the technology of these lenses work, but if it's got anything to do with, basically, because they're trying to do a three-dimensional thing, if it's anything equivalent to eyeglasses, what you're asking for is not exactly possible, because of the way those work, especially, again, people wear glasses. So from my perspective, I think its focusing is crystal clear, beautiful. I love the way it looks. The few times I had light issues is because when I put the mask on, I like try to lift it up and like look at something and put it on, and then the seal was kind of broken and the rubber straps could not seal properly. I had to literally take it off and then put it back on. So once I did that, it was completely sealed around my face, no light. There was no distortions, anything. I said, I think the design is just overall very well done. I think some people who have given it some harsh critique are failing to actually look at how so many parts of this can just be tossed away, like the whole section where the sealing around your face. Remember the earlier versions of VR headsets, they were all attached as one piece. So when that piece that basically sealed around your face was wearing down, you were screwed. Now in the next generation, they gave you like, you could take a band or something and some of them would come off and then you can replace it. Again, cumbersome. Now they have the magnetic stuff and you can just literally say, okay, this one's worn off, whoop, recycle bin, and then you just order a new piece and you just put it on and it just uses a magnetic strip. And clearly, because it's such an easy, simplistic and easy design, third-party people can make their own versions. I think there's just tons and tons of stuff just for the Quest 3 alone, and I'm sure there'll be some for the Vision. So overall, I think the Vive has put a big focus on getting your headset to survive as long as humanly possible, the main hardware part, and allowing the parts, from using their experience with previous versions of headsets, the parts that break down the most to be easily replaceable, like the battery, the power switch, cables going to USB-C standard. Not only that, but then the padding. If you look on my video, oops, this side right here, that pad that's on the back can be literally tossed out and you just get a new one. The design is just simplistic all the way around. The only thing that you can't replace is obviously if you scratch your lenses or something like that. Then you're kind of SOL at that point. But then again, everything has got their limitations. So that's that on that part. I think some people are giving it a bad rap in that regards. Now, power thing. I talked about the power stuff and how it draws from the display port. And since I've recorded those earlier versions of the videos, I did discover that I think it's the secondary battery. So what research I found that there's literally two batteries. There's the main battery that you're replacing, and then there's a secondary battery in the system. I think that something is causing, even when you're using the display port and it's pulling the power in, that secondary battery is being drained, because in the last 24 hours that I've had this and I've been using this display port only, I've had it say to me, the headset refused to come on. And then when I disconnected the USB cable to have it go standalone, it tells me that the battery is really low. However, when I look at the main battery that I have plugged in the back, that one's at full charge. So which battery is really low? I'm thinking it's the secondary. It's hard for me to tell. So I just put it in the AC adapter and connect it. So again, this one's going to Vive directly. You need to figure out something about that secondary battery and why it's being drained when you're using the display port, and see if you can fix that through firmware, because there's no reason for that battery to drain. If you're drawing 30 watts of power through that cable and that's all you need for that headset to run, and plus it's not, the headset's not using its processor, it's not doing anything because all the work is done on the PC. You're just basically a monitor. Why is that secondary battery being drained. Something's going on there, and please look into it. Hopefully you can fix it with a firmware. If it's not a firmware, I hope that if it's a hardware issue, that it's isolated maybe to the battery pack that goes into the back, so that you can then redesign that, and all we just do is replace that piece, and then the rest of the headset we can keep moving forward. Again, I want to thank my viewers to looking at this. And again, Vive, thank you for making what I think is an extremely good headset overall, considering the previous generations. And look forward to many more times of playing.